Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host, Yeukai Kachidori.
Hello, it's Yeukai Kajidori here, and on behalf of my business partner, Trevor Stockwell, and the amazing team here at World Outsourcing Solutions, I want to welcome you to this special episode of Enlightened Entrepreneur. You can find us at worldoutsourcingsolutions.com, where we specialize in providing business owners from all walks of life with highly trained, highly skilled virtual assistants. We are the go-to center of all your outsourcing needs based here in the United Kingdom. Hello, thanks for joining us today. My guest today is Laurie Chick, who is the founder and the CEO of Chicked, which is a mobile dating app that makes needs connections obsolete. Welcome to the show, Laurie.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me.
It's incredible to have you. I'm actually very excited about having you on the show to talk about something that is very, very pressing to a lot of entrepreneurs and those who are interested in relationship, especially in urban areas like London, where I'm based, and places like New York City, where there's a lot of things happening there. So to get us started, Laurie, can you tell us a bit about your journey to establishing such a thriving company?
Well, how long do we have? I'm kidding. So I'm an architect by trade. I moved to New York City about 20 years ago, and I practiced architecture and design for about 15 years since I've been here. And I was out to dinner with another architect, I guess that was 8 years ago, and he slipped a business card to a woman at this restaurant that he'd had his eye on, and he'd written on the back of it, "Want to have dinner?" And I had this light bulb that went off above my head that I could not stop thinking about. And it was how to break the ice with total strangers in the real world and how to take the business out of the business card. So I walked around talking about this idea for well over a year. I ended up finding a couple of guys that got it, and they became my business partners and helped me launch Cheeked in May of 2010. So it was a deck of dating cards that you would slip to people in the subway or a bus or at the cafe, and you could walk off and they'd be able to find your profile on the Cheeked website with the code that was on the card. And they had these funny pickup lines on them. So they would say something like, "Where have I been all your life?" or "I just put all my drinks on your tab." So they'd have these funny pickup lines on the cards and a code. Anyway, so I did that for 4 years with these cards. And then I've had this opportunity to pivot into what I have now, which is this new dating app.
Incredible. Before we go into this dating app, I'm sure you had several other ideas, especially coming from the background you're coming from. What made this idea so stand out for you and that you really wanted to pursue it?
Well, I lived in New York for over a decade, and, we're so compact here in New York City. And the reality is people don't speak to each other in public spaces. I mean, not total strangers unless you're in line at a grocery store, and then it's still rare. I mean, these places where missed opportunities are happening most are on your morning commute in a subway or, just standing on a street corner. But if you talk to people in New York, they look at you like you're crazy. So I
it's so certainly the strange thing. It happens here as well in London when you go on the tube. People don't talk to each other. It's like, okay, it's one of those experiences.
But and there are days when I'm walking around New York City, and if you want to freak people out, you smile at them, you wink at them, you make eye contact with them. I just think it's so interesting that we're these humans sharing these common spaces together. And why is it so awkward to say something to someone? I mean, even when people sometimes talk to me on the train, I'm a little suspect if they're going to kill me or something. I don't know.
It's the culture we live in, especially in the West here.
Yeah. And I think even now with our obsession with our technology and our phones, that it's taking it to a whole other level, and everyone's got their headphones in. Like, you just can't break that barrier. So, I was obsessed with this idea of how to to meet strangers. And that's what I couldn't stop thinking about, is being able to slip these cards to people in a subtle, non-intrusive way that could say, hey, I want to see you again, without being so bold or awkward.
Yes. Yes. And what were the initial steps that you took, after you had this compelling idea you wanted to bet, so to speak? What were the initial steps you took?
Well, even I was an architect designer for years. I didn't have any idea what it took to build a business. And, I even was interested in patenting my idea, which 4 years later, I ended up getting awarded a patent for the code tracking process on that deck of cards. So, even getting the business incorporated and getting our legal documents together, the equity splits with the partners that came on board. And it was helpful that I had a couple of guys that had joined my team, because, things are better with a larger force in a way. Instead of me just walking in circles trying to figure out how to bring it to life, I had some business guys that joined me and they helped. So we ended up getting all the social media. We hired some vendors all over the world. They were cheaper than getting web developers in New York City. So we had a team of people working on our website that were literally all over the world. We had our designer in Bolivia. Our web developers were split between the Netherlands and London, and we were based in New York City. Our graphic designer was in New Zealand. So we'd have these Skype calls that, everybody was on a different time zone. We had these language barriers, but somehow within a year, we had everything launched and ready to go. And soon after, we had to tell the world about it. And I did kind of a funny thing. I sent one of those cards out to one of the editors of the New York Times, which is one of the biggest papers in the world. And we got covered on the cover of the style section of the Times a few weeks later. And it said, "Move over, Match.com. This is the next generation of online dating." So that was pretty cool.
Incredible. You touched on something very important, which we actually do here. Recently, we're doing a survey of the imaging type of organization, and that's virtual teams. And you have already done it, like in your first year when you're building the base. How did that make things easier for you to have team working for you all over the world?
Well, at the time when we launched the company, we only had a shopping cart set up for America. And then when that article came out in the New York Times, it got syndicated in newspaper equivalents all over the world. And then our inbox was flooded with people saying, how can I get these cards in Australia? Just all over the place. So we finally had to quickly build an international shopping cart to start shipping them all over the world.
Incredible.
So yeah, that was kind of cool.
When you have that break, it makes it, worthwhile, all the hard work you were putting in, and you begin to see what you've been working on coming to us. Is an amazing feeling.
Exactly.
Following on that, how did you get to your initial clients before you get all this PR? How did you get to your initial client?
So, this was a long time ago. And at Facebook, I remember I only had like 200 friends on there back then, or not even that many. But that was really what I started to do out of the gate, was just post all this stuff all over Facebook. And I pretty much begged every single one of my friends on the day that we launched our website to change their profile picture to our logo. And it was kind of cool because a lot of people did it. Back then people didn't care what they posted on Facebook, but I'd say 100 people had changed their profile pictures, and some of them forgot to change them back. But anyway, it was a neat thing. We started getting some orders that day, and it was just more about friends and family support out of the gate. And then we'd hired a PR firm to help us, but they got started before we even launched our business, and I think we ended up paying them like $9,000 before we even had a live website. So that was kind of a waste of money. And then I realized whatever they're doing, I can do better because I'm more passionate about it. So I started doing my own PR, and I have really figured out how to do that well, and I've been covered in a lot of things since then. But press helps.
Yes, and you had an interesting journey actually, because during that time you got to be introduced to working with Oprah. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, so I never physically met her, but after that New York Times article came out, I'm telling you, it crashed our website. There were just people emailing us left and right, and we got an email from one of the producers from Oprah's show, and she wanted a deck of our cards and an interview and a picture of me. And I remember I was so excited. I had tears in my eyes for hours after that because I thought we were going to have one of those Oprah moments. But
Yes,
we
yes.
we never ended up on the show. But it's not every day that people get an inquiry from Oprah Winfrey's television show. So that was really exciting.
Correct. It's part of the journey, but just having that is wonderful. Other than that, you got to be on TechCrunch and Forbes. Talk about that for a moment.
It's like each story I have a unique way of how we've somehow gotten covered. And, the Wall Street Journal covered us. We ended up creating a Wall Street deck of cheeked cards. So they had like money sayings on them. So one of them would say something like, "You just made my stock rise." So, yeah, I went to a networking event where it was called Press Meets the Startups. And there was a woman from the Wall Street Journal there. And I remember getting in this line of what felt like 20 people to talk to her. And I just sat there and waited patiently till it was my turn to talk. And when I told her what I had, she said, "If you give us the exclusive on this, we'll write the story." So within a week, we launched our Wall Street deck of cards. And we were not only on the Wall Street Journal, they had it on some kind of a news thing that they do as well. So we had a live segment of the women passing our cards back to each other and laughing about them. So that was kind of cool. And Forbes, I've been in a couple of times. One of them came through a women's networking event, and she said, "Valentine's Day is coming up, and I write for Forbes, and I'd love to cover your business and around Valentine's Day." I'm like, okay.
Wow.
Even that was just a chance thing that happened by just out at a networking event. And the last one of Forbes was one of my favorite stories because I'd gone to the Dublin Web Summit
Yes.
a few years ago. And I remember there were like 860 exhibitors and 90% of them were men. And I thought, how is anyone going to make their way to my little booth over here in this corner?
Yes.
Anyway,
yes.
I wore kind of this outrageous outfit. I had rose.
I like this story, actually. I was, yeah, go ahead. I'm interrupting you.
I had these rose petals that were on the ground leading up to my booth. And then I had worn these angel wings and these silly glasses without lenses in them. And, it worked. People were like, "What's going on over here? Who's this crazy chick?" Anyway, I had it set up for a couple days and I had a few interviews, but then I remember I was checking out of my hotel finally. And I thought, was this really worth me coming all the way over here? Do I need people in Dublin knowing about Cheeked? And it was expensive. So as I'm checking out of the hotel, I look down on the front desk and there's a picture of Judi Dench on the cover of the Irish Times, and there's a picture of me in my angel wings on the cover right next to her. And then you open up the paper and there was this other half page color spread of me with those wings on my computer, and it talked about my business a little bit. So that was pretty cool. But that was in the Irish Times. And then I have this whole other article about Forbes about how I've gotten all my press from doing silly stuff like that.
Incredible. One of the things I really like about you, Laurie, is your creativity. Talk to business owners listening today, how important that is in today's competitive environment.
Well, yeah, I think the startup space is super saturated. And if you want to stand out, you can't just stand there and be like the next person. I've gone around speaking, excuse me, to other entrepreneurs at events. Maybe there's 100 people in a room, and I'm looking around at all these people who have established businesses or startups or ideas. And at one of them, there was not a single person in the room wearing their brand. And I don't leave the house without Cheeked somehow written on my body. So I usually have a t-shirt on, and I've made them stylish. So they're not just like these huge clunky t-shirts. And I have a fake tattoo that I wear that says Cheeked on it with my logo. I have a cheek necklace. I used to wear these cheek backpacks everywhere I go. So it's free advertising. And I just think that's one of the easiest ways to get the word out. I mean, there's not a day that goes by where someone's not like, what is that on your arm? What is this word all over you? You know, it's free. But that's,
Absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
as an architect and designer, I'm fortunate because I do have a creative background that's come in extremely handy in building this business.
Yes. And where do you see this, this trend of being competitive going maybe in the next year?
Like in New York, the startup scene it's booming right now. So we have this event called New York Tech Day, and there are just thousands of startups in this huge warehouse. And I mean, it's really overwhelming. But even in a place like that, there are investors walking by your booth. And I think if you do the right thing, you never know what can happen in an event like that. So I do think that the trend right now of creative marketing is it's crucial in helping build businesses.
Incredible. And how does your day look like, as an entrepreneur, running a business probably, from the comfort of your own home? What do you do?
Well, I was engaged to a guy a while back that I had met through handing one of my cards to him.
Incredible. You leave the thing that you talk about. I love that.
I said was engaged. So it didn't turn out in a positive result, but he couldn't stand the amount of time that I spend working on my business. And, I was speaking to you earlier about this is like a child to me. And if someone that loves me knows how much I love this child, they're not going to ask for me to choose between my business or them, because in the end, I've known this business a lot longer than I'd known him. And I felt like I had to go in the bathroom and send emails half the time. Like I was hiding when I needed to do work. But my point is, I love what I'm doing. I mean, I'm giving the opportunity for singles to find love, and even myself now. I'm excited to be able to potentially use my own app and find the love of my life on it. So I don't know. I work in the middle of the night when I keep a notepad next to my bed. When I can't sleep, I'm writing ideas down, and I get up and I just go at it. But, fitness is another part of my life that became a very important element when I was so stressed out when I first launched. Yes. And I found relief at the gym, and I've never been in better shape in my life. And I religiously go to the gym at least 1 hour a day, and mostly 2 hours. So that's kind of where I get my break, but I'm usually in there working mid push up or on the elliptical trainer. I'm catching up on Twitter or Facebook and doing my social media. Yes. So, yeah. And then at night I'm out to networking events or pitching the business and speaking at events. I mentor quite a bit. So it's all kind of it's fun for me, but it's all about work.
And it's versatile. You're not doing the same thing over and over again. You have a mixture of the things that you do.
Yes, exactly.
Incredible. I noticed as well, I think in our previous conversation, you have a co-working space. What has been your experience with that?
Well, I've worked in so many different places in New York. I have been a member of several different co-working facilities, and I'm a member of a private club called the Soho House. It's based in London, but we have one here in New York City, and it's kind of like a country club, but very urban and chic. So that's where I've done a lot of my afternoon working. There's a fireplace in there that's fabulous, and you can see a lot of celebrities. I actually got starstruck one day when Richard Branson walked in, and I handed him a cheat card.
Incredible.
Yeah. He's one of my heroes, so that was kind of cool. But
it's awesome. Okay, let's talk for a moment as we come toward the end of our time together here. What do you know now about running a business that you wish you had known when you were getting started?
I think the importance of having the right people around you. I have told you the story about these guys that came on board with me. They had the same skill set. So I had two guys with masters in business, and I didn't need two of those same people owning the same amount of equity in my business. That was like two chunks of equity that should have been separated, one to a technology person and one to a business person. So that was a big mistake I made initially when I decided to make this come to life.
Yes.
And I think that you need to have very positive people around you, like yes people that believe in your idea as much as you do. And I was on that television show, The Shark Tank, after 4 tumultuous years of building my business. And
yes, actually, I'm very interested to hear about that. Maybe after you respond to the initial question.
Well, I had hit a wall financially, and I just needed a boost to keep the business alive. So
Yes.
I remember wanting to apply for that show. Someone sent me the link to apply, and they sent me a 50-page application in the end that I needed help with. So I remember I walked into one of my partners at the time and I said, so I'm going to try to apply to get on the Shark Tank. And I was hoping I could get your help with this application. It's really lengthy and I've only got a few days to do it. And he looked me in the eye and said, Lori, do you know how ridiculous that is? There are like 50,000 people that apply to get on that show every season. And there's no chance you're going to get on there. Anyway, a year later, I found myself walking down the scary hall of the Shark Tank. And at that point, my partner was no longer with us. So we split ways. But, he wasn't a yes person in my life.
Yes. And you had an interesting experience, there. Can you talk to us about that, the turnout from, that experience?
Yeah. So when I went on there, I knew I didn't have a compelling story. My users tapped out at a little over 1,000 people at one point, and I knew I'd go on there and they'd probably look at me like I was crazy for still trying to bring this to the next level. So that's exactly what happened. But in the midst of all of that, I thought someone in the world was going to see how dedicated I was. And, there are investors that watch that show that aren't the sharks. And, I ended up getting 3,000 emails in my inbox after that show aired of people saying this idea is genius. You're ahead of your time. The sharks were wrong. I mean, Kevin O'Leary told me to take my business behind a barn and shoot it like a rabid dog.
Oh, that's a harsh thing to say.
I didn't care. There are 8 million viewers on that show, and I didn't care that this billionaire investor didn't get my idea. I mean, I knew other people were, and the evidence was there the next morning in my inbox.
Yes.
So I decided to not only not shoot my business behind a barn like a rabid dog, I decided to push harder and reinvent my business, which is what I ended up doing.
Yes, and one thing about you really is beautiful is the thought that you never give up on what you're doing. You keep on moving forward. What would you say makes you have that sort of quality?
Well, I've always been extremely competitive. Even as a child, I was a gymnast in competitions, and even my family is kind of like that. We play games and we play to win. And I've just always kind of been that way. I've played every sport that we possibly had in my tiny hometown at school. And I did everything I could do. And I wanted to make it to the top in everything that I tried. So I think there's this stubborn characteristic that I have that's also been an attribute in building this business and seeing it through.
Yes, incredible. So, Lori, talk to us about the service that you provide. A lot of people at this point would want to know, what is it that you do? What does your app do? And how can they access it?
So, soon after the Shark Tank, I had a new partner come on board who's my CTO, the tech person that I needed for many years, joined forces with me. And he ended up funding the new version of our business. So we hired one of the hottest app developers in all of New York City to help us build the solution that we thought would change the game with Cheeked. So you no longer have to slip someone a card. We have a Bluetooth technology on our app that connects you whether you're on a plane or a train with no connection to Wi-Fi or cell signal. And unlike a GPS app, our app works immediately. So if you cross someone in your Starbucks, or maybe someone's at the end of the bar that you can't see, and they're also on the app, you get an immediate notification that you just missed so-and-so that could be sitting right behind you and you don't see them, but our app will capture them for you.
Incredible. And is it accessible here in London?
Yeah, so it's downloadable all over the world. The beauty of that show, The Shark Tank, is it re-airs all over the world all the time. And, people love going on our website hoping that it's down, or I do think there's a lot of cheerleaders out there that hope we're still alive. So now when that show airs, everybody comes onto the Cheeked website and we get lots of downloads. So we needed to make that happen internationally. So yes, we are available for download on iPhone only right now.
Yes.
Android's next, but it's not easy building an app.
It takes a lot of commitment as well. Changes.
It's painful, let me tell you, but it's all worth it in the end.
Yes, you're making a huge difference, connecting all those people together that probably would never have connected. We really appreciate that. What would be your advice to people who are looking to become entrepreneurs or to be working on their projects?
Well, I think that you really can't do it halfway. Building a business is not easy. It's even very scary at times. So unless you are willing to make tons of sacrifices and, maybe even go broke at some point, it's a struggle. So you've got to be strong. You've got to ignore the naysayers. You've got to be resilient and, like I said earlier, surround yourself with the right people, positive people that are cheering you on and helping you succeed. So, and I think stubborn, that whole stubborn thing. Yeah. Keep
Absolutely.
going.
One of my mentors said we were talking about this same subject, and he said, if you are not failing in what you're doing, you are not trying anything new. And I thought, for a moment, that is really profound. You just have to keep on going. You will face a lot of, maybe resistance every now and again, but you still have to keep on going. You fail today, you get up, dust yourself, and then you keep on going like you have done. You've got tremendous success, from having this, media exposure, all the ups and downs, having partners leave, and having new partners coming on board. That is the journey of an entrepreneur. When we were talking earlier on, you gave one of the best advice about picking a career. You say you need to pick a lifestyle, not a job. Would you expand on that for maybe our listeners who will find that interesting?
Yeah, I think all the years that I was working in the corporate world, I was 15 years in, and I don't remember ever loving my life the way that I love my life now. I'm half in pajamas, half in my gym clothes right now. I'm drinking coffee at home. I'm talking to you. Like, this is something I could never do before. And I'm my own boss. No one's looking for me. I'm able to spend more time with my family. I'm traveling to Hawaii next month for 2 weeks with my mom and dad, which is something I never would have been able to do if I had a corporate career. I'll be working over there, unfortunately, the whole time, but I do love what I'm doing. So that's amazing. I've mentioned the struggle, but this has been the biggest learning experience of my life, the most rewarding journey I could have ever imagined. And I have never been more ecstatic in my life. Like, this has just been such an amazing road. And I'm not looking backwards.
Yes, incredible. Really appreciate, all those words of wisdom. Now, where is the next stage for Cheeked? In the next 2 years or 3 years?
Yeah, so the neat thing of what we can do with our app is we can set up beacons. So imagine I've just missed someone in Times Square a few minutes. We can even connect the people that you almost passed. So I think there's something serendipitous about what our app can do in the future. And, getting this on Android will also help get potentially twice as many users. So the app does even more magic for people all over the world. But, I'm just doing everything in my power to make this the next big dating app. And, there's a lot of exhaust with that app, Tinder. I hear nothing but people complaining about it being a hookup app. But the difference in what we have is it connects people in real life in real time. So I think there's something really neat about the potential of breaking the ice with someone before you start these virtual online conversations that usually end up going nowhere. So
and
I
it's
think,
just desperately needed in the West. Here in London, like we were talking about earlier on, how people don't talk to each other. Yeah, and this is, in my opinion, timely, especially here where I am. So, Laurie, how can people get in touch with you?
so I think Twitter's a fun way to reach out. If anyone wants to reach out to me on Twitter, my handle is Lori Cheek NYC. That's LORICHEEK NYC. And we've got, of course, Facebook and Twitter, which are both cheeked, Instagram cheeked. And we have some Valentine's Day events coming up. If there's any New Yorkers listening, you can find that on our cheeked Facebook wall. And yeah, that's probably the best way to track us down.
Incredible. And you have some events coming up around Valentine's Day over there in New York. Would you talk about that for a moment?
Yes. So we have three, Valentine's Day is a day about love. That's what we're trying to do here with our app. So we have a happy hour on Friday the 12th in the East Village. And Saturday night, I think we're actually going to do a fun party with a Mexican restaurant. Sunday, we're having an anti-Valentine's Day brunch. Oh, and on the 10th, we're doing an event at one of our WeWork locations here with another startup. And it's a bring a friend kind of party. So you bring someone of the opposite sex, and then we try to connect everyone in the room with the app and other fun ice-breaking games that we're going to do. So all of this will be posted on our Facebook wall, and we're just super excited about that upcoming holiday.
Incredible. Once again, Laurie, thank you so much for giving us your time and speaking to our listeners today. Is there any last few words of advice you want to give to entrepreneurs, be it on the relationships or just in business as a whole before we wrap up here?
Well, I know that entrepreneurs are very busy, so if they download our free app, we'll help you find love, and you don't have to do much work.
Incredible. I like it right on the spot. Thanks again for being with us.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We will speak with you again very shortly, and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Yeukai Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.yukaibusinessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.